The price of a dream. The air in New York smelled different, colder, harsher. Adama tightened his grip on the small duffel bag slung over his shoulder as he stepped off the plane. The voices around him blended into a blur of English and other languages he didn't understand. Back home in Sierra Leone, people spoke Creole, but here, everything felt foreign. His uncle had told him, "America is the land of opportunity. You work hard, you make something of yourself." That was the dream, the promise. But no one told him how expensive life was. No one told him about the loneliness. And no one told him how quickly a dream could turn into a nightmare. A harsh welcome. Adama moved into a small, crammed apartment in the Bronx, where his uncle lived with his wife and 4 kids. They gave him a couch to sleep on and a job washing dishes at his uncle's restaurant. The work was grueling, the pay was barely enough, but he kept reminding himself, this is temporary. Days turned to weeks, then months. He saved every penny he could, but life in America was unforgiving. Rent was high, food was expensive, and every mistake felt like another reason people told him, go back home. Then one night, everything fell apart. His uncle's restaurant got shut down. With it, Adama lost his job. His uncle told him, I can't support you anymore. You're on your own. At 19 years old, barely speaking English, Adama found himself on the streets with nowhere to go. The breaking point. He slept in subway stations, finding warmth in the corners where no one would bother him. During the day, he walked the city searching for work. But without papers, without connections, no one would hire him. Hunger gnawed at him. Pride kept him from begging. But when days passed without a meal, he dug through trash cans behind restaurants, searching for anything still edible. One night, as he sat shivering on a park bench, he met Malik, an older man who had once been in his shoes. You got 2 choices, Malik told him. You let this city eat you alive, or you fight back. Adama had spent his whole life fighting. The climb Malik helped him find shelter and connected him with a local construction site that was hiring workers off the books. The pay was low, but it was enough to eat. More importantly, it was a start. He worked harder than anyone else, staying late, taking on the toughest tasks. The foreman took notice and offered him a chance to learn carpentry. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a skill, something he could build on. For years, he worked in silence, learning everything he could about construction. He got legal residency through a work sponsorship, then picked up night classes to improve his English. By the time he turned 27, he had saved enough to start his own small business, Adama's Home Repair. People in the community trusted him. He worked with integrity, never cutting corners. Word spread. The jobs got bigger. The money got better. At 32, he bought his first home. At 35, he hired his first employee. At 38, he owned a full-scale contracting company, employing 15 workers, many of them immigrants just like him, men who had once struggled the way he did. The dream fulfilled now. Standing in front of a room full of young immigrants, Adama adjusted the microphone. I know what it's like to feel lost, he said, looking at their faces. I know what it's like to be hungry, to want to give up. But I also know what's possible. He told them about the nights in the subway station, about digging through trash cans for food, about how hard work alone wasn't enough. You needed the right people to guide you. That's why I'm here, he said, to show you it's possible. The room erupted in applause. Adama had done more than achieve the American dream. He had become the person he once needed. The cost of life. The morning sun hung low over Port-au-Prince, casting its golden light on a city that never truly slept. The streets were alive with movement, children weaving through traffic to sell bags of water, women balancing baskets of mangoes on their heads, and men gathered in clusters, murmuring about the latest surge in gas prices. For Jean-Pierre Toussaint, today was like every other day, a fight to keep his family alive. He navigated the crowded market. a sack of rice hoisted over his shoulder, his muscles straining under its weight. This was his latest hustle, buying food in bulk from wholesalers and selling it in smaller portions to those who couldn't afford to purchase an entire bag at once. The profit was small, but in Haiti, every gourd mattered. His wife Maurice waited for him at their small stand, their youngest daughter Elsie tied to her back with a faded scarf. Their other children, David and Michelle, were supposed to be in school, but they had been pulled out when tuition became too much. Instead, they now helped their parents at the market. Jean-Pierre had once dreamed of something better. He had excelled in school as a boy, hoping to one day become an engineer, but the world had other plans. His father had fallen sick, and as the eldest son, his dreams were the first to be sacrificed. Now, at 42 years old, he watched history repeat itself. A nation on the brink, Haiti, had always struggled, but things had never been this bad. Inflation had spiraled out of control. The price of rice had tripled in just a year. Cooking oil, once a staple, was now a luxury. The government had long abandoned its people, and the gangs controlled more than half the country. Electricity was a rarity. The few who could afford generators had to ration fuel carefully. Running water had become a privilege. People adapted. They always did. But how much longer could they survive like this? Jean-Pierre's friend Luc had left for Chile 2 years ago, one of the many Haitians who had given up on their homeland. He had sent money at first, but even that had slowed as the economy in Chile worsened. Another friend, Mathieu, had tried to make it to the U.S. through the Darien Gap, a treacherous jungle route full of thieves, disease, and death. Jean-Pierre never heard from him again. Now he wondered if he, too, should leave, or if Haiti would take everything from him before he got the chance. The price of education. David, his eldest son, wiped sweat from his forehead as he stacked bags of rice beside their stand. At 14 years old, he was sharp, quick-witted, and ambitious, just like Jean-Pierre had been at his age. One night, after the market had closed, David sat beside his father in their small, one-room home. "Papa," he said hesitantly, "do you think I'll ever go back to school?" Jean-Pierre felt his chest tighten. "Bondi Conan," he finally said. "God knows." But David wasn't satisfied. "I could be a doctor," he continued, "or an engineer. I could learn how to fix things, maybe even help Haiti." Jean-Pierre smiled, but it was a sad smile. How many Haitian boys had once said the same thing? The government didn't care about children like David. Schools were underfunded, teachers were paid late, if at all, and those who truly wanted to learn often had to rely on foreign aid to get an education. The few who did make it out of poverty rarely returned. Desperation in the dark one evening, after a long day at the market, Jean-Pierre counted the money he had made. It wasn't enough. He sighed, rubbing his temples. There were 2 weeks left until rent was due, and they were short. That night, there was a knock at the door. Jean-Pierre tensed. No one visited this late. He opened it cautiously, finding a man in a neatly pressed button-down shirt standing outside. The kind of man who didn't belong in a slum like this. "You're Jean-Pierre, right?" the man asked. Jean-Pierre nodded slowly. "I have an opportunity for you," the man continued, his voice smooth, practiced. "A way to make real money." Jean-Pierre already knew what this was about. He had seen men like this before. They came with soft words and promises, but what they really brought was bloodshed. The gangs had taken over much of Port-au-Prince. They were recruiting, not just young men, but anyone desperate enough to listen. They needed drivers, lookouts, men willing to smuggle goods through gang-controlled territories. Jean-Pierre swallowed hard. "I have a family," he said. The man's smile didn't falter. "That's why I'm here." Jean-Pierre clenched his fists. He knew what happened to those who refused. He had seen the bodies in the streets. A father's sacrifice. That night, Jean-Pierre lay awake, staring at the ceiling. He thought of his father, of the sacrifices made for him. He thought of David, of how much he wanted to learn. He thought of Maurice, of how much she had already endured. And he thought of Haiti. This country had taken everything from him, his dreams, his education, his future, and now it wanted to take his soul. No, he would not let Haiti turn him into another statistic. At dawn, before anyone else woke up, he packed a small bag, a few clothes, some bread, enough money to get him as far as Cap Haitien. He left a note for Maurice. "I will find a way. I will not be lost to this life. Wait for me." Then he stepped outside and closed the door behind him. He didn't know if he was heading for freedom or another dead end. But one thing was certain. He wasn't waiting around to find out. For watching my video, I really appreciate the support. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss out on future content. I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and let me know what kind of videos you'd like to see next. Your feedback helps me create content that's actually useful and interesting for you. Also, be sure to follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook for more updates, behind-the-scenes content, and project highlights. Just search Building for More. I'm easy to find on Google and Instagram. And if you need a quote for any interior or exterior work, call me anytime at 678-754-5890. I'm always available to help bring your vision to life. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. You don't need to convince anybody about how great you are. When you are content with yourself, you don't need the approval of anyone else. And when you accept yourself, the world will accept you.
I know it seems hard sometimes, but remember one thing. Through every dark night, there's a bright day after that. So no matter how hard it gets, stick your chest out, keep your head up, and handle it.
I want to be a beast. Do you know what a beast is? A beast is someone who can walk through hell and be grateful that their legs are working. A beast is someone who has lost everything and is grateful for the opportunity to get everything back and more. A beast is somebody who has hit rock bottom and says, "This is amazing, it's only up from here." That's a beast.
I want to see what you do when you're tired. Let me see how you push yourself. Come on, man. Get up. Get up again tomorrow. Get up again tomorrow. Get up again tomorrow. The next day.
When you're afraid of something, you have to master it. That's how you start to overcome it.
You must be willing to extend yourself to the limit with no guarantee of success. Every day, you must ask yourself, did I do enough?
Yeah. I don't care how good you are.
On paper, they're a better team.
Right.
They have all the assets and resources that we don't. But let us get on the line, boy, and see if that factors in. I guarantee you it won't.
Wow.